Hi, I'm Mick Barry with Dr. Michael Edelstein. We're doing our 3 Minute Therapy podcast. 3 Minute Therapy uses Rational Motive Behavior Therapy, or REBT for short. Rational Motive Behavior Therapy was developed by Albert Ellis in the early 1950s when he found that practicing psychoanalysis was entirely ineffective, and he came up with his own means of therapy, which he discovered or uncovered and disclosed and taught to people that it's not the things that happen to us that make us emotionally upset. It's the way that we view them. Specifically, if we think that things have to go our way, if we demand to get what we want, then we will make ourselves emotionally unnecessarily upset. And by unnecessarily upset, I mean that we can make ourselves depressed, enraged, or have anxiety. And Albert Ellis worked with people, including himself, on how to eliminate anxiety. And the key to that is to eliminate your demanding thoughts that things must go your way. And we do the podcast generally once a week, in which we cover specific different topics and how REBT can help you solve them. Is there anything else to mention, Michael?
That's pretty complete. The only thing I'd like to add is that not only do our thoughts cause our emotions, but it also causes our behaviors, and that's good news. So if you're addicted or procrastinating, look to your thinking, normally your demands, musts, and shoulds, because that's the cause in most cases, and try to change your demands by questioning, challenging, and contradicting your musts and shoulds.
And I think we also ought to mention that Michael Edelstein had a running injury this morning, which is why he has bandages on his face.
Yeah, it's not for Halloween.
Though it's a good Halloween costume.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's topic is how to practice rational emotive behavior therapy. There are several ways to practice it, and it really comes down to being aware of what your thoughts are. Now, we have an ABC exercise, which we strongly advocate people do. That is not the only exercise that people can do. And whatever aids you in recognizing your demanding thoughts and then eliminating them is what we encourage people to do. One of the things that Albert Ellis recognized about human beings is that we are endemically self-defeating with our thoughts and which create our emotions, so that the goal in REBT is not to be 100% free of self-defeating thoughts and emotions, but to largely be free of self-defeating thoughts and emotions. It is a lifelong endeavor to get rid of our demands. And when we get rid of our demands, invariably more demands creep up because we're fallible human beings. It's within the nature of human beings to make ourselves feel worse than is realistic to feel. So in practicing REBT, we do advocate the ABC exercise. Michael, have we taught people that, or how can they find out about the ABC exercise?
Well, one way they can find out about it is to get my book, 3 Minute Therapy, and each chapter illustrates working on various problems like anxiety, depression, anger, addictions, and procrastination with an ABC exercise, which I call a 3 minute exercise, and where A is activating event, the situation you're working on. B, your irrational belief, your must or should. C is your emotions or behaviors caused by your irrational belief. D is disputing or questioning your irrational belief. E is effective new thinking, or the answers to the questions, which normally is your musts and shoulds and demands are false, although preferences make sense. So don't give up all goals and all preferences and desires. Just give up the ones that you escalate into demands, and that normally will lead to a more rational perspective on life.
Now, Michael, not to diminish your book sales, but is there a demonstration of the ABC exercise on your website?
There's not a demonstration on my website, but I believe in an earlier podcast before you were on board, we demonstrated it.
Okay, and we don't know the title of that, do we?
No.
Okay. I do think that the exercise is available on YouTube. I think I could check on this, but I think I've seen somebody demonstrate it and actually demonstrate it accurately. But anyway, what the ABC exercise is, it gets very specific on identifying your irrational beliefs. And the best way to identify your irrational beliefs is we start with our emotions. We know when we're feeling depressed or angry or anxious, and we can just start with, well, I feel anxious. And then what you want to do there is assume that there is a demand, and the trick is to figure out what the demand is. If I'm getting ready to make a talk, I'm anxious. Well, the demand would generally be, I must do well in the talk. I must not fail in the talk. But then there may be other thoughts as other people must think well of me, even if I don't do well. I know that it's possible that I won't do well, but other people must think well of me. So identifying the demand can be a little tricky, but as it's practiced more and more, we get much better at doing it. I can almost always find my demand. And I also find that other people can be very good at helping me find my demand, and I can be very helpful in identifying other people's demands. So using a partner can be very helpful in implementing REBT. Now, aside from the ABC exercise, there are other exercises. There's rational emotive imagery, which I think Albert Ellis, somewhere on YouTube, there's probably a demonstration of Albert Ellis teaching somebody about that. Wouldn't you say so, Michael?
I don't recall that on YouTube. I do have a discussion of it and demonstration of it in my book, 3 Minute Therapy. Uh,
Okay.
if you look in the index under imagery.
Okay. Well, not to diminish your book sales, but if I think you just Google REBT ABC exercise, something will come up. And if you Google REBT rational emotive imagery exercise, something will come up. One thing I've found is very helpful, and I invented this myself, which I call a 3 minute monologue, in which I simply set my stopwatch and I talk to myself out loud if I'm driving a car. And if there's something that I have to attend to with driving, I don't continue the exercise. I attend to the driving. But if I'm driving in a pretty safe way and under comfortable conditions, I can do a 3 minute exercise where I set my stopwatch and I just start telling myself rational thoughts, such as, I want to do well with this talk I'm giving. It will really benefit me a great deal. It's highly important to me that I do well in this talk I'm giving. There is never a guarantee of any success in life, and I don't need a guarantee of success in life. And regardless of how I do with the talk, I can still accept myself unconditionally. Accepting myself depends upon me doing it. I can decide to do it. I can have the determination to do it. And that depends on nobody and nothing else. Michael, anything you want to say about that?
Uh, the reason to accept yourself unconditionally is because you're an imperfect human who acts imperfectly. So even when you do poorly or people disapprove of you, you're still the same imperfect human.
Well, and I would say the reason to accept yourself is when we have unconditional self acceptance, that eliminates our anxiety. about thinking badly of ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a few other things to mention with RABT. Unconditional self-acceptance is strongly advocated, and that what that means is no matter what I do, I can still accept myself. Now, conversely, this also means no matter what I do not think of myself as a great, incredible human being. I try to not evaluate myself in total, but just to accept myself as fallible. And no matter what I do, whether I succeed or fail, I can still accept myself. And if I succeed, I don't elevate myself to superhuman status. That would be silly. And that simply promotes me to rate myself. In fact, this is something that I see a lot of people do. They rate themselves as being fabulous because they achieve something that's fabulous. And then they start thinking that they are just a great human being, which simply encourages us to rate ourselves. So, in practicing REBT, we encourage people to accept ourselves, but not rate ourselves. Now, there is a very human tendency to rate ourselves, and I've heard Albert Ellis himself say that it's hard to achieve non-self rating, but it's not that hard to achieve. Would you agree, Michael?
Well, it's hard to achieve total non-self rating because, as you said, we're humans with a tendency to rate ourselves, but it's something to work toward. And the less you rate your total self, but rate your acts, the better you'll feel and the better you'll do in life.
But I would say that even if it's I think it would be impossible to achieve total self acceptance 100% of the time, but that doesn't mean it isn't worth pursuing. And just like we can live largely free of anxiety or anger or depression, we can live largely free of rating ourselves. I don't rate myself that often. If I catch myself, when I catch myself rating myself, I simply correct it. So I just want to say, even though Albert Ellis said it's hard to achieve, it's definitely worth pursuing. And I think it's quite achievable just because it may be difficult at first. It gets a lot easier the more that somebody practices accepting themselves. Would you say that's true, Michael?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we always emphasize practice to develop a new philosophy of unconditional self-acceptance. And while you're at it, unconditional other acceptance, because others are imperfect humans, even if they treat you poorly. And uh, accept unconditionally the conditions of your life, which are always imperfect. But upsetting yourself about it doesn't help.
Well, and also with accepting ourselves, we want to accept what the outcome of our behavior is, and that we don't want to say it should not have happened. However, we can evaluate it, and if we say that behavior is not something I'm happy about, I want to do a heck of a lot better next time. So just sometimes people say, well, if you're advocating complete self-acceptance, isn't that giving people a license to just do whatever the heck they want? No, because behavior is not always beneficial to us. So we can evaluate our behavior as being good or bad behavior, beneficial or detrimental behavior, and address our behavior while fully accepting ourselves. In fact, if we are absorbed in evaluating ourselves, we tend to not evaluate the behavior and to excuse lousy behavior. We don't want to excuse lousy behavior and just say, well, I'm going to commit lousy behavior, so I might as well commit lousy behavior. No, we can do better with our behavior. If I'm depositing money into the bank, I want to put it in, fill out the deposit slip correctly so that there's no discrepancy and I don't have to waste my time with the bank coming back to me saying I put in the wrong amount. So we strongly advocate beneficial behavior and discourage detrimental behavior. Anything you want to say about that, Michael?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah. Okay. And so we also advocate, as Michael said, unconditionally accepting other people and unconditionally accepting life. Nothing says that our life must go the way we want it to. We would like it to be largely enjoyable and full of happiness, but it does not have to go that way. And since it doesn't have to go that way, it's best that we go ahead and attend to the things that we can do to create a life that we're largely enjoying. So, unconditional self acceptance, unconditional other acceptance, unconditional life acceptance, and to look for the should, look for the demand, look for the must, and change it vigorously, passionately, be able to know, to believe that life does not have to go the way we want it to go. And therefore, I can look at the details to see what I can attend to so that there is a chance that life, so many aspects of my life, will go the way I want them to go. Anything else about that, Michael?
No, very good, very good. So I think we can wrap it up now. And I'd like to thank Chris Rossini, our tech engineer. Comment below if you have thoughts or questions. Give us a thumbs up if you gained something from this, and suggest subjects you'd like us to discuss. And Mick, did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, I have one other thing. I mean,
Yeah.
throughout the day, you can observe your thoughts. At one point, I thought this was being neurotic, and Debbie Joffe Ellis, Albert Ellis's widow, pointed out, no, it's being mindful. So if you want to, throughout the day, observe your thoughts when you're feeling anxious or depressed or angry, that's a good practice. But I would say, along with that, remember there is no reason we must not have demanding thoughts. As Albert Ellis has said, and it's true, the craziest thought you can have is, I must not make demands, or I must not be crazy. So if you want to observe your thoughts throughout the day, hold on to your thought that there is no reason I must not make demands, because it would be very easy without that thought to think, here I go making another demand, here I go making another demand, here I go making another demand. Gosh, why am I making so many demands? And the demand not to make demands, that'll drive you nuts. So remember, it is part of being human to have demanding, self-defeating thoughts. So if you're being mindful throughout the day, remember that it is part of our makeup as human beings to make demands. And also, we don't have to be obsessed about it. If you make some demands here and there and they're not that disruptive to your life, like I'm putting laundry in the dryer and a shirt falls on the floor and I go, well, damn it. Well, okay, I was demanding that the shirt didn't fit. I don't care. I'm not going to worry about correcting that demand. We don't have to correct every demand as long as it isn't largely disruptive to our life.
Okay, great. Okay,
And
and
we never have to correct a demand. It just benefits us to correct demands.
right. Okay, and wrapping up, I wanted to say that volunteer if you'd like to be a guest. We'd be happy to help you with a problem. We've had guests infrequently on the podcast. And I'm Dr. Michael Edelstein. I'm here with Nick Berry. And subscribe to the 3 Minute Therapy podcast to do what, Mick?
To stay on the rational side of life.